Chris, and I'd like to welcome you to the Enola Frost Studio Workshop. Do you ever wonder, what should I do with all of these gel prints? If you're anything like me, you have several of these types of containers that are very difficult to keep organized because the papers themselves are flimsy and they're not all 8.5 by 11, so file folders don't hold them very well. Sorry about that. So today's video is to show you something that you can do with your gel prints. It is a very basic approach. We are going to make cards, and that coincides very nicely with a fun little shopping trip that I got to do today in the last throes of my winter break. So we're going to turn the camera around and I'll show you what I have in mind. I have just gotten back from what I think is the only remaining brick and mortar paper crafting store in my large metropolitan area. And it was just so fun. I'll show you what I went for, I'll show you what I fell for, and I'll show you what I'm here for today. Since it is the beginning of the new year, the store has all of their Christmas merchandise on sale for 30% off. And as I was making holiday cards, not to send, but to give to my friend who wanted to send them, I just felt like I needed more variety of sentiments. So I got 3 different, very different than anything I have in my collection. And I was excited about those, and very inexpensive. So it's 30% off those prices. Then Memory Box and Poppy both have these really unassuming dies. This looks like nothing, but I know what they become. So this is the Layered Cosmos. This one was in their clearance section, which I think was 25% off, but because I'm one of their loyalty members, I think I got an extra 20% off that. So very little money for these very simple dies that I will do something with. This series from Poppy are their Nordic dies, and I previously bought one of their borders that's in the same style, and I find it very usable, so I grabbed that one. This one, got suckered into this at the checkout. I just love lava lamps. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I was born in 1970, but I plan to have fun with that. I'm a Spanish teacher. I can't help it. I had to get the piñata. I had to. This, love a cover plate die. And this one is called Trellis. Just so useful. And then score tape. This wasn't on sale. I just needed some more, and it turns out that I really like the 3/8 inch variety, especially for adhering heavier pieces in my art journal. And then what I'm going to work on today, a group of my friends that graduated together asked if I would be willing to contribute some sympathy cards to someone's collection, because the people that we graduated with are losing loved ones. And actually some of our classmates have passed away recently. And so there's a group that is taking note and sending out sympathy cards. And then I get the pleasure of actually making the sympathy cards. So that's what I will be doing today. I have their Waffle Flowers Straight Sympathy set. I can't think of what it's called right now, but this is a really nice complement to it. And I think it will work very well with gel prints. And then what I fell for, y'all, Spellbinders just make some really, really cute things. And even though this set is just called Pretty Birds, this really speaks to me of lovebirds. And since you hear my little guy in the background, you'll get it. You understand why I like that so much. So let's go. I've been an avid card maker for some time, and what I'm going to do today relies minimally on card making skills. I'm using my Misty that has seen better days, but that still works so well, and the Waffle Flower Paper Hugs Sentiments stamp. I grabbed a sheet of 110-pound accent opaque white cardstock and a couple inks. VersaFine Clear for a nice brilliant black, and then Catherine Pooler's Juniper Mist, which is a beautiful navy blue. Once it's diluted at all, it kind of tends to purple, but I'm going to print some sentiments in this, and then using the accompanying dies, I'm going to cut them out. I can't even tell you what the name of this sticky mat is under here. It's something that I bought on Amazon, and I just cut down to use it because it's so inexpensive compared to the brand name items that you can get to do the same job. It's just a storage tip. As soon as I get these stamp sets that are on a firm piece of acrylic and then a looser piece of acrylic, I take my handy dandy packing tape and I put a little hinge on the bottom, because then when I'm putting it into packaging, I can slide it in without fear of getting the backing between the sheets. And it's just how I prefer to store them. Of the sentiments here, the ones that I think are great for Sympathy, obviously the one that says with Sympathy, and then I like Take Your Time. I think that's a great sentiment. And then this larger one, Hugs for Today, Love for Always. I think that's what stole my heart. And then just for some personal use, I like Paper Hugs. And if you've never seen a Misty because you are not a card maker, Misty stands for something like most important stamping tool, something, I can't remember what it stands for, but you place your stamps where you want them, so you can do that very precisely if you need to. I don't need it to be precise for this, except it just occurred to me that I want to separate these a little more because I need to be able to fit the metal dies over them, and sometimes when you've stamped them, the metal dies have a little bit extra clearance and it's hard to get around that. So once you have them placed, then you close it and they stick to the cover, and theoretically, I say theoretically because I'm noticing it's not very sticky, your paper will adhere to the sticky background. But I also have a set of pretty powerful magnets that I purchased with my Misty. So this is what we're starting with, and I'm going to take these images, and these are brand new. You know what, just as I say that, since I just pulled the stamps out of the packaging, it is recommended that you condition these photopolymer stamps, and they sell cute products that you can use and you can take an eraser and you can go over them. And I've never had any problem at all just rubbing my finger across them. Somehow that gets out some of the oils from manufacturing so that they grab onto the ink better. I have not been stamping much lately, and so I'm not sure that ink is going to show up very well. But I can give it plenty of pressure. Yeah, that is what we call needs re-inking. Sometimes when I buy the Catherine Pooler inks, and I have a large number of inks from that range, but I don't have them all. For a long time, I would only buy re-inkers of the light colors because they needed them first. But when you have favorite colors, and Juniper Mist really is one of my favorite colors, you should buy the re-inker too. Once you dab the ink on, especially if you're going to be using it right away, it's not a bad idea to take a recycled card and help spread the ink a little bit. Now, wait till you see the difference that makes. Okay, well, that has to be user error because this usually stamps very well. I don't have to add more ink when that happens. If it's parts of the stamp that haven't made contact, that's just me needing to put even pressure on. See, there we go. That's what it's supposed to look like. And then what I do, you can see I sort of occupied about half of that piece of paper. I just turn the paper over. I don't need to move the stamps. To stay in place, I re-ink them. Okay, and some of this might also be because they are new stamps. I might not have gotten everything off. Ooh, that looks terrible. I don't know if you can see it very well, but the edges are really messy on that one, so that one will get tossed, but the rest of them look quite good. I'm going to repeat the process now with the VersaFine Clair. Nocturne is the name of it. Let's see if this is inked up. Now, you could clean your stamps off, but since I'm going to an even darker color, I'm not worried about it. You're not going to be able to see. And this particular combination, first it was a water-based ink, and now it is, I think it's an oil, it's a pigment ink. I'm not concerned about contamination. I would not do that if I was going from the pigment to the water-based, because that could in fact contaminate. All right, so for strategy, you can see that every time I have stamped, I've had trouble with the middle of the larger stamp. And so something that I would do if I were not filming is I would move the stamp. In fact, I might at least shift it. Okay. I don't want to take everything apart here, and I know this is going to get my fingers very messy. Okay. There could have been some sort of bubble. We'll find out if that makes any difference. But I could definitely move it to a different place on the platform. as an additional strategy, but I'm pretty sure things are just going to sort of sort themselves out. Oh, yes, okay, that worked, great. All right, so now I'm going to take these off camera to place the die cuts and to cut them out. And I promise you, before I do that, I'm going to clean my stamps because now they're really messy. Today I'm creating with the jelly prints in mind and with people who don't always make cards in mind. I'm going to work with just a few tools and a variety of gel prints, and I'm just going to follow a recipe, okay? And one of the, I'm sorry, I've cut things out when my lovebird is making noise, but it just kind of makes me laugh, and he's part of my life. So one of the essential pieces for me in this recipe is a fun background die. This is a set of standalone dies from Pink Fresh Studio, and it is called the Nested Rectangle Postage Edge. So I like to use the second largest one, and I'm going to go through my stack of gel prints that I think are color and tone appropriate for sympathy cards, and I might even layer some on top of others to give them a more muted look. But I'm literally going to cut out this one shape as many times as I can out of the gel prints that I grabbed. Again, that's not going to be interesting to watch, so I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll come back when I have them. So here's my recipe. White card base, a die cut background from my gel prints, and I'm actually layering a deli on top of something that is a little bold for sympathy cards. An appropriate sentiment. Remember, I'm doing sympathy cards, but you could do birthday cards. And then some sort of focal point. And so I had to think what's appropriate on a sympathy card. And today I'm going to use botanicals. So mostly stalks of leaves. So I'm going to cut out a number of pieces, and I chose some colors here. I'm going to do some in black. I'm going to do some in these greens and this yellow that match some of my backgrounds, and then mostly probably going to focus on white. I might do a few pieces in the silver glitter. Those would be relegated way into the background though, because glitter doesn't exactly say sympathy card. So let me cut some out, and then I'll show you how all the pieces look together. Once you have your card bases and you have adhered your gel prints as a background, I think the principle I would apply here is keep the background the star. In my case, the sentiments will be important because I'm hoping to express sympathy with them. But other than that, I want everything that's in the focal point. Yes, those were air quotes underneath the camera. I want those just to be a small addition, not a super attention-getting one. So I went through and I die cut all of the botanical elements, and I will often do one or I will do three, keeping those odd numbers. And then I cut some, this is actually embroidery floss. It's a metallic, I think it's DMC. It comes on a spool. And I like to just wrap around the stems. And sometimes I just tie a knot, sometimes I tie a bow, kind of depends on how much I have cut or how much I have if I'm recycling something. But a simple knot in this case is enough. And then pull down the blossom here, spread out the floss, and then decide how long I want the pieces. Just trim so they have nice ends. And when you're making cards, the rule of thirds is very good to go by. So the way I would look at this, I would divide horizontally in thirds, and that's vertically in thirds, and then horizontally in thirds. So I imagine putting my tall element on that axis, and then because my sentiment is the shape that it is, I am going to put that on the other third. And that's really all it takes to give a pleasing composition. Could you do more? Absolutely. But the basics right here. One thing that you need to keep in mind if you are using your painted papers in card making is that glue has a much harder time adhering to acrylic paint than it does to plain paper. And most glues that are used for crafting for card making tend to be pretty strong. So what you do is simply place it and then make sure you put some weight on it. So I'm going to hold it down with my fingers for a moment, but then once I get my sentiment on, then I'm just going to place something heavy on it. And if I let it dry that way, then that is good enough to stick. What works better is a double-sided adhesive. This is, I forget what scrapbook.com calls it, but it is the double-sided tear tape from them. This is the 1/4 inch version, and it's about right there. I'm centering it. I guess those are going to stay under there because I taped them on. And there you go, a simple card, letting the jelly print really be the star, but using some simple die cuts as well. Let me clean up a little, and then I will show you a selection of the others that I did, following the basic tenets that I outlined here, but also showing that you can definitely do variations. Okay, these are some variations on what I showed you before. This is still top folding, but it's oriented in the other direction. This one is also top folding. And in this one, I still put the botanicals on that third line. And my take your time sentiment is not really following the rule of thirds. It's a little more centered with relation to the botanicals. This one, I had cut some of the perforation off on that top end, so I turned it into more of a banner style background. And then again, my botanicals are on this third line, and then my take your time is approximately also, so this is very similar to the first one. You notice with the solid colors of the botanicals, keeping them fairly minimal, you're still drawn to the background and the patterning. This is always an option as well. This was the strip of paper that I cut some of the botanicals out of, but it left a pleasing negative space behind, so I used that strip on top of my background. There you go. So I have a whole collection of sympathy cards that I'm able to share, and I used up quite a good number of jelly prints that I had been holding on to for quite a long time. I think that's a day well spent here in the studio workshop. Come on back again. Bye.